High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live from LinkedIn, YouTube. Let's see, we've got Twitch and Facebook. It's Revening's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests, so I'm going to get right into it. But before I do, I want to make sure and remind everyone, there's a newsletter that's going out every Wednesday. If you head on over to revening.com/newsletter, you can subscribe. But this morning we were giving you basically a little preview of the show for today. There's a recap from the Wednesday of last week and some of the great topics that came up. But then also, I'm scouring the internet for marketing news, and there was a lot going on in terms of just like IPOs and man, just like new creative ways to market in terms of like marketing with your local sports teams. So there was a whole article in Ad Age about that and how Oatly and some larger brands are looking at sponsoring local sports teams this summer and making a huge impact. So check out the newsletter and get inspired. It's revening.com/newsletter. But also, in addition to the newsletter, I want to tell you all a little bit about High Level. You all know that I white label High Level. So for us here at Revening, it's app.revening.com. And that's what we use, and that's what our clients use. And it's a CRM and marketing automation platform that doesn't break the bank. I mean, if you sign up with us and you're a client, it comes included. But you can also get a full CRM and marketing automation platform for just $97 a month. And then it comes with 3 accounts. So not only do you get an account, but you can either have 2 sandboxes with it where you can test, or you can put other people on them, like people in your coaching program. So it's an agency platform, and it's a really great way to scale. And if it's something that you would be interested in, I'm an affiliate myself. I would love to help you white label High Level and go help others with it as well. So just scan this QR code if you're watching on video. Otherwise, you can go to revening.com/high level. If you're listening on podcast, definitely check it out. Try the free trial. Reach out to me at jessie@revening.com if you do the free trial. And I will personally set up a meeting with you because we want to make sure that you're successful, because then we succeed. There's a 40% commission on affiliate with High Level. So every time you recur, I get another 40%. So I want to, at least give you an hour to make sure that you're set up to succeed. And maybe our team can even help you with some done for you services. But I digress. The other thing that I want to tell you about is delegating. So delegating is something I used to really struggle with a lot because I wanted to like control everything I was doing. I wanted to I didn't want to give away certain things because I'd worked so hard to get that stuff accomplished. But what I've learned is I can grow faster when I organize myself out of my current role. So think of it like that. If you are a sales development representative or a marketing manager, how can you create an opportunity for someone else to learn what you already know? And then that's your opportunity to go do something else, like work on the business rather than in the business. And you get to do that when you work with Cherry Assistant. Cherry Assistant has helped me scale because I'm able to delegate a lot of the work, like to Layla, who's here in the background helping to produce a show. I used to be the one like clicking all the clicks and like doing everything. Now we have her looking at the comments. She's commenting, and that's unique to my business, is producing live streams. So what's unique to your business? Watch during the intermission and you'll see a menu of services that they can help you with. But reach out to Cherry Assistant. I do get a little bit of a cut if you end up working with a VA, full disclosure, but I highly recommend them because I work with them and I've had a really great experience working with Cherry Assistant. So I want to help other people have that same experience because I wouldn't be scaling the way I have been without Layla's help and without the help of video editors from Cherry Assistant. And so there's so many opportunities for you to do the same. I digress. We have some great guests. Let's get into our show. But I want to welcome onto stage, we've got Jacob Gooden and Syama Bunten. Thank you so much for being here. Ah. Well, okay, we've got to just jump right into it with full life stories. Birth, what brought you to now in 2 minutes? And like, we want you to take the full 2 minutes, and we're gonna put a clock up. But like, we want to know the real human you. And Jacob, you've been on the show before, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with Shama. Shama, could you tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I feel like I'm on like a game show and it's like I gotta get it all in at this time. Okay. So I was born in San Francisco in California. I was a theater kid up until high school. So that was super cool. I did some really cool things when I was younger. So I pitched the White House to sing at the White House when I was 12 years old, sang there when I was in high school. So I call it early stages of positive trauma, like knowing I could do anything in the world and just going for it. And then after high school, I went to a French high school. I don't speak any French anymore. So long story for another time. And then I moved to New York. And New York, I had a really incredible fashion career. I was a buyer at Barney's. I ran a division at Gucci, grew businesses to hundreds of millions of dollars, launched my first company in 2012, moved from New York to Los Angeles, got married, got divorced in Los Angeles, had that business for about 12 years, worked with clients like the United Nations, took businesses from 250 to 100 to $10 million in 5 years. Oh my God, I think I need 5 minutes. Okay, let me go faster. Then went through my divorce, decided that I wanted to have this journey in sort of financial understanding and awareness, and realized that if we didn't have conversations and start to activate our capital, that women were going to lose. And so that has really been the purpose of my life's work so far right now, is like, how do I get more women to be able to be financially active so they can change the world to their capital? And that needs to be done across a variety of asset classes. Some of that is venture capital. It might be real estate. It might be buying a cash flowing business. But I'm on a mission to help women become rich. And that is really exciting. So it brings me here today. I've got a top 100 podcast all around women and their money stories. I host an incredible sold out conference all around women and money. And my journey is to help women see that money allows them to live their wildest dreams. Done, kind of.
And you did it with 15 seconds remaining. You thought you needed 5 minutes. Wow, that is so inspiring. And okay, I'm also a fellow theater nerd.
Me too.
I love that. Oh, so we're all theater kids. That makes sense. That we all have our own podcast too. So just go figure. So I mean, hey, if you're listening and you're in theater school, just stay there. I mean, it's okay. You're gonna make something of yourself. I remember that being a fear. Like, can I study theater? Like, what am I ever going to do with myself? But anyway, I digress. And you sang at the White House. Like, how incredible. And I love the way you put it that was it like a good trauma that like it showed you were able to accomplish like really big things from an early age. That was really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I call it positive trauma. It's like it's still traumatic in the sense that like, oh my God, this big thing is happening, which is what trauma is. But in this case, it's like, oh my God, this really good thing is happening.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us just a little piece of yourself in 2 minutes,
Yeah.
Shama and Jacob. You're welcome back to the show. You and I have done business together before. Like you've helped me with podcasts, with client podcasts. So I like can say out loud, like you do really great podcast work.
Well, thank you.
But, this 2 minutes is about learning about you and
Okay.
the real human you, Jacob. So could you start at birth and tell us what brought you to now?
Of course I can. So I was born at a very young age, almost 29 years ago, and I grew up in Ventura County, California. So also a California baby. And yeah, growing up, I was a homeschool kid, so I'm a weirdo. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. But theater kid, theater nerd. I was also a mime for a while, since we're talking about things we were involved in. Music was a big part of my childhood and growing up. I loved, like, I played guitar, I played drums, I played bass, I played a bunch of different instruments. I worked in music studios, and that was what I wanted to do for a career. I wanted to produce music. And so I went to college for that. And within a week of being at school, I realized I don't want to do this anymore. And I flipped over to entertainment business and focused mainly on managing bands, and still wanted to be very creative. Made a lot of good friends that way, and was involved in the improv team in college because, theater kid, got to keep that going. And So anyway, so I figured out I wanted to manage bands and still be in that creative space. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee right after college, and I've been here ever since. Didn't work with bands, but I ended up working with podcasts and figured out that my passion is helping people create really cool podcasts, really cool content to put on the internet and share their stories. So that being said, aside from being a podcast editor, producer, I also have my own show. It's the Ex Homeschoolers Club. So go check it out after this, after you listen to this. And I talk with a bunch of ex homeschoolers and we talk about our stories of growing up and the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. I'm trying to think what else I've got that's kind of weird. I don't know. I'm also married. And maybe that's it. I don't know.
I think that's it. I mean, that's a lot. But there's more that you're just not thinking of. So if it comes up, definitely let us know because we appreciate all the quirkiness here. I won't say the word weird because I like the weird. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've got a really great topic that I can't wait to talk about. And before we get into it, Syama, thank you so much for the work that you do to help elevate women into wealth. And even with your podcast, I've only listened to a couple episodes, but I think that type of content is super rare where women get to hear other women tell their wealth stories. And a lot of them are not the stereotypical story of being born and into it with Harvard education. And, a lot of them are those like bootstrap, like pull yourself up by the bootstrap stories of coming from nothing to something. And so listening to your podcast makes you come away feeling like I can do it too. So it's really incredible content. But if you could like give us a really high level of like just in general, how women are changing the game in venture-backed startups.
Yeah, what's really interesting is more and more women are starting to realize the power of their capital. And so historically, the way we looked at money, we would often see that women were consistently being pitched to things like, hey, just keep your money somewhere safe, right? Don't do anything risky. Well, what's interesting is in the last, I guess it was been in the last 10 years, a lot of the rules have been changing around who can invest, how we can invest. And so today, as it stands, in order to invest in a private company, so not on your brokerage account on Fidelity, but into a startup, the requirements are such that you have to be a solo earner of $200,000 a year, a joint household of $300,000 a year, or have $1 million in your net assets, not including your home. Now, that means that it's actually more accessible these days to be able to invest in private companies. And so, why is this important for women? Well, historically, women, not only are there things like, gender pay gap, or we make 15% less, but things are not 15% discounted in the stores. But we also think about things like the time that women spend out of the labor market, right, which is also time spent out of putting money into their 401ks. There's just simply a disproportionate need for women to get more creative with how we're building our wealth. And so venture-backed companies is one of those opportunities for women to say, all right, I might get some asymmetric upside here, which means a disproportionate amount of upside if I have a strategy that includes investing in private markets. Now, what's also fascinating is not only is that beneficial for women to invest in private markets, but women are also fueling the investment in private investments, specifically in one key area these days, which is women's health. Now, why is that so important? We've been hearing so many different cutbacks and rollbacks on research, on scientific research from the government. So fueling some of these things that we hear nowadays around the commonalities of menopause or perimenopause or fertility or all these things that not only, as we know, not just affect women, but also men and also families and the society at large. These areas really need to be funded. And so venture capital resources, especially we're seeing the movement from women to put their money into these areas, it's really been a high growth opportunity. And so I believe that venture is one really specific, interesting way for women to be able to get asymmetric upside with obviously being a high risk. Right. So certainly venture capital is one of those things where 1 out of every 10 investments, you may yield a 10x return. The idea is not that you would make every single ROI on every single company. And so what I find is actually the biggest hurdle or barrier for women to be investing in venture capital right now is sort of understanding the breadth of wealth building opportunities, right? It's not just, okay, 401k, buy my home and venture capital. It's okay, let's diversify across a whole variety of assets here. What are you doing with real estate? What are some other things that you are building? Do you own a business, right? We have to start to think creatively about how we build wealth. So venture, I think, is being fueled not only in the areas of women's health by a lot of women, it's also great asymmetric upside. And then certainly almost all of us have been hearing around the lack of funding for female founders. Now, what's interesting about that is it's not just a problem for women to solve by investing in venture to female founders, but what we're noticing is that it's really just becoming more of a need for female founders to be able to start to have more visibility to be venture backed by men and women. And so I think there's a narrative shift. These days, a lot of female founders are trying to get more women to invest in their companies. But there is an education hurdle right now, I think, that women have to go through to understand, what does risk mean to me? What is it that I'm willing to lose? What are my short and sort of long-term strategies here with wealth building? And how might venture capital play a significant role with that? So a couple of things to sort of keep in mind. In venture capital, you might lose everything. You might see a return in 5 years, 10 years, right? These are really longer term horizons. Your assets might get diluted. So whatever you put in, it may not be that you own the same amount of shares that by the end, depending on what your terms and contracts look like. There are a lot of different nuances. The company might go public and you may end up losing money, right? Who would have thought that that would be the case? But that has happened to me, where I thought it would be like such a big win for the company to go public. But in fact, I ended up losing money, right? So things like lockup periods. There are so many nuances around this, you guys, around venture investing, that I think it's important to really research and understand. And then also to know that you don't just have to be an angel investor, sort of writing individual checks into companies, but you can also invest into funds. And that is one area that I think really needs to be looked at more closely with women who fall into this accredited investor category, which is putting money into institutions that are actually spending every day thinking about the kinds of companies they're investing in, the diligence, the exits, and that they're accountable for your money. I find that that's a great way to sort of have someone who's stewarding your capital across different sectors. And there are amazing funds that are available that are led by women, also led by men. But I believe that it's really about finding the right funds that are going to fit your values. And so one of my very first things around thinking about money and our values and what we want to see as far as upside is, what do you want it to do for you? What's important to you, right? How are the things that you want to see in the world actually going to come to be? Is it climate change? Do you believe in, domestic manufacturing? What are the things that you think are really going to move the needle to make you feel like you've had a satisfied life? And so looking at venture capital investing through the lens of your values, I think, is one of the most important things that we can do. Secondly, I think, and most importantly, is to do so in community. When we think about investing in money, I often like to share with folks that, when I started getting into understanding my money a little bit more, it was through my divorce. I sent out an email to 50 girlfriends and said, hey, who wants to talk to me about money? Where are you investing it? What are you doing with it? Out of 50 women, 95% of them did not want to talk to me. And I think that that is a really crucial and critical thing, which is we have to have conversations about this. How do I know it's available if no one's talking to me? And so I went on a journey, and it's now been, I guess, about 6 years since that happened, around asking women about their money and starting to bring women together to talk about their money. Now, why is that important? Because oftentimes we are siloed, right? We pick one lane, we become very good at that lane, and then we don't bother to look outside of ourselves, which means we're ultimately limiting our opportunities, right? Because we're only focused in one area. So bringing people together in community to talk about creative ways in which you're building wealth, different opportunities, that I think is super essential for us to be able to really move the needle. Because in the last 6 years and through hundreds of conversations, what I have realized is you can give someone a to-do list of what to do with their money, and they'll never do it. And the reason is because they don't have a connected why. You give someone a great story, you show them how other people are doing it, You show them the breadth of possibilities, and they may not say, I want to do what she's doing or what he's doing, but I might be inspired to do something for myself. And that's going to be deeper and meaningful. And that's really going to move the needle and have some change. So, storytelling is really at the core of how I think we're going to be getting more women into investing in general, and certainly looking at moving the needle in this like asymmetric upside opportunity of venture capital. The other thing I'll sort of end here with, and Jesse, you tell me, I feel like I'm going on forever and I could go
Oh,
on
I
for
think it's
days.
great. Keep going.
The thing that I think is so, interesting about it is also we think about investing in venture capital as needing to be something that is, you're putting in $100,000, right, or $1 million, and that venture capital is really, and private investing is really for those who have big bucks, right, beaucoup dollars. It's not the case, right? I sort of outlined a few minutes ago about the differences of how we think about, $200,000 or $300,000 as a household, or $1 million in your net assets outside of your home. Yes, that is not the entire country, but that is certainly not the 0.0001%, right? There is a interesting ground here of people who can engage with this. Now, even if you're making $200,000 a year and you live in New York City, you might be like, I still feel really broke, right? Or you're in San Francisco and you're like, oh my God, I still feel broke. So I get it. This money is sort of really dependent on where you are and what your lifestyle looks like. But writing these checks into these private investments can range. You can invest in a privately held company for as little as $2,500, right? You can invest in a venture fund for as low as $10,000 or $25,000. So yes, there are bigger ways to be able to engage. You can write a $50,000, $100,000, $1 million check, but you can also start small. And this is also why I believe the power of networks is super important. How will you know when these opportunities come up where you can go to be able to have access? And so access, I think, is the one thing that we just simply have not really cracked, right? And that is why having places to engage and having these opportunities, I think, is so valuable. San Diego, yeah. San Diego is also expensive. Totally. And so when we think about, where is the opportunity for us, we have to have some humility. So I'll give you an example. At the conferences that we put together, on your badge, there is no, here's the company I work for, right? Here's my title. Obviously, by virtue of being in the room, you've identified yourself as being someone who believes that they're worthy of living the life of their dreams, that they're worthy of wanting and having the money that they want, and that they're worthy of being in the room with other smart and intelligent people. So you are opting in. And so therefore you're saying, I am this, right? By virtue of showing up, because showing up to a conference all about money is intimidating. It's really intimidating for women, especially, right? Because most of these conferences do not speak, feel, and are pandered and catered to us.
Right.
And so when it comes to sort of the differences, I think another component here is how do we show up with what our innate knowledges and wisdom? And that is the one thing that I'd love for everyone to walk away with, which is we all have wisdom inside of us. Some of us are caring for aging parents. Some of us have wisdom around real estate. Some of us have wisdom around building Airbnbs, building businesses, selling businesses, investing in crypto, investing in Broadway, investing in art, investing in wine, in having life experiences around a divorce. All of these things are actually wisdom keepers that are sort of triangulated around lots of different things, but certainly money is at the core. And we have to be willing to come from a place of humility and say, here's what I know, and here's what I'm curious about, and who can sort of help me close the gaps here for myself. And that is what I think is ultimately a huge difference in this moment and in this movement of how I'm looking to build financial education for women and help us invest more.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, but this is such an important topic. And I'm glad that you brought it back down to the $2,500, that's a possibility, entrance fee, I guess you will, like investment, or even like 25,000, because I think probably a lot of people hearing this were initially thinking like, I don't really have $1 million in my 401k. I don't have, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, we're talking about women here specifically, like, not only, I mean, you mentioned it in the beginning, there's the pay gap. A lot of the jobs women tend to take tend to be less valued financially, like, teachers and nurses and things like that. So like, I'm just thinking, all of the different careers that women take, there's some that tend to have more women than men. And if those careers aren't necessarily yielding the entrance fee, if you will, to get into this opportunity to invest, it makes it harder and harder. So like at like a broader, like bigger level, because like Jacob has the homeschool podcast even, right? Like, so taking this back to like early childhood education, even like, how do we change this so that like, more women in general have access to even be able to get to that entrance fee?
Totally. What I think is, I posted something yesterday on Substack about like not like, can we afford to not be risky? Which is
Yeah.
like, I am not going to inherit generational wealth. Everything I've invested is everything that I've earned from businesses that I've built. It is very much like, and I realize that like I may be in a caregiving capacity for my parents one day, right? I'm the eldest, right? I also have 3 stepkids. And so like when it comes to looking at wealth for me, it's like I can't afford to not look at risk and see where I can push it. Because if we are all living to over 100 and this idea of retirement at 65 is out the window, right? Then the question really comes to pass, which is, can you afford to not be risky, right? Does your playing it safe route, right? Does the 401k only route, is that going to really last and pay off? And we have to rethink our risk levels based on that. And so, Jess, you asked like, well, what can we do? I personally believe that every single American should be a business owner. And I
Yeah.
believe that because of tax benefits. I
Yeah.
believe that because of, again, asymmetric upside. Like, what is something you can do that can yield something higher? I believe you can start an LLC while you have that full-time job and start being able to like build and noodle and create something. So I think that we actually need to take advantage of the opportunities we have in this country, which is we can all become business owners and start to do that as like a step one thing for all of our children, and for all of us, the moment that we realize that we need to push it a little bit further.
Yeah. 100%. I love that we could all be business owners. Jacob, you're a business owner. You came out of homeschooling and you do that whole homeschool podcast. And I just asked a deep educational question. So I'm going to push that right back over to you. Like, what do you think needs to be done so that more women can get access to be able to invest?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's in the homeschool world, it tends to be very there. Homeschooling and Christianity tend to go really hand in hand. And one of the things that I think is a downfall of Christianity, and not to get super religious or anything like that, is like this idea of patriarchy and the idea of like men being very dominant and women being more submissive. And that is an environment that I grew up in. That's an environment that a lot of my friends grew up in. And so, but we're seeing that start to break down in this next generation. The people who are my age, we're in our late 20s, going into our 30s. A lot of us are coming out of that, and a lot of us are recognizing that that wasn't very healthy. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of the ladies that I grew up with, they're teaching their kids now that you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. And they're giving them the tools to do that. And I think that is where this kind of shift is going to start to happen, where as we continue to like educate in a very equal opportunity kind of a way, we're going to see that. I think from a male perspective, right out of college, I started working for a startup. It was a female owned business. I loved it. It was a little bit of a learning curve for me because, like I said, I grew up in more of a patriarchal household, and so it was a little bit of a struggle, but I learned a lot, and I started to break down those things and to recognize like the value that they brought to the table. And what was cool was they gave me opportunities to show my value, and so it was very equal. Um, and doing things like that, I think, and demonstrating those things, we're going to see a shift. I think it's coming, it's happening currently, and that's I think that's all we can do. I mean, it's just continue to educate and to continue to break down those things of like, maybe this is the way it was, but it doesn't have to remain that way. Right. And we continue to change and evolve and grow over time. And so we're seeing that today. I think we're going to continue seeing it in the next however long we've got.
Yeah. And, taking it way back, like, 300 years or whatever, like hopefully longer ago, but I don't know. Someone will probably be like, no, it was only like 20 years ago this was happening. It's like, it's crazy when you hear some of the stats out
Yeah.
there, but women weren't always welcome in public spaces. Women weren't always welcome to go out and speak their mind. So to me, even just having a live stream is sort of like a political stance in many ways. Like my grandma would have seen this, she'd be like, what in the heck? You're talking business, like live in front of people? Like what? And she was a pretty progressive woman for her age, or for her like generation is what I meant to say. But so podcasting today and what we're doing now, it also kind of changes the game. And I would argue we need more women. I'm always trying to make sure I have a balanced number of women on the show. Sometimes I'll say it does get difficult because I need to find more women CEOs and more women founders, and there just aren't as many, especially those that are like actively out there with a podcast or on LinkedIn or doing something like that. So I would like to see more of that. So Jacob, for podcasting today, what do you need to know? And just going along with the theme of like help more women rise and break down these old stereotypical patriarchal ways that aren't helpful for anyone, what do you think they need to know about podcasting that could help them?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's very daunting to start a podcast. It took me, I bought podcasting equipment back in, I don't even know. It was like 2016, 2017. I didn't start my podcast till 2024. It took me a very long time. It was very daunting. And I was working on podcasts for like 6 years, 6 years before I even like hit record and pressed publish on my own content. And so it's very daunting. And so if you are someone out there who is like, it is scary beyond belief, I get it. It is very difficult. That is where I think things like this are it's a good warm up, right? Guesting on other people's shows is a great place to start when it comes to podcasting, live streaming, creating content in general. Is like get in front of someone else's audience and like you can fumble and it's okay. Like I say that. Hopefully the person who's hosting you is okay with you fumbling a little bit, but it's a great way to kind of cut your teeth on what you're doing. But when it comes to the podcasting space in general and getting into it, it can seem very daunting because most of the things that we see are thousands of dollars of equipment. We see a lot of celebrity podcasts. And they have the money, they have the backing to be able to do these really insane setups. You don't need that. My setup has been built over a long time, but I started out, I had a $15 webcam. I had a $25 mic that I bought on Facebook Marketplace, and I just started doing what I could with the free tools that were given to me. And that was that. Now, of course, things have upgraded, got a little bit nicer mic, got a nicer camera setup. You slowly evolve over time. But when it comes to podcasting today, what is a podcast? Because that is a big question that I think we could debate all day. Most people think of it as an audio only format. Some people view it as now it has to have a video component. We're live streaming right now. I would consider this a podcast. Some people would just say this is a live stream, but I know that this gets repurposed as an audio only format. Clubhouse. Anybody remember Clubhouse? Clubhouse is still a thing. I found out this week that there are people on there still using it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a variety of different things that can be used to like create your podcast and to repurpose it. You have to figure out what that is for you, and that's why I say experiment and go on other people's shows. I don't normally do live stream content with other people. I do a lot of pre-recorded stuff. There's lots of editing involved. We could take out the ums, the ifs, the stumbles. But a couple things you need to know as far as like what you should be looking at if you're interested in starting podcasting or just content creation in general is YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. So I highly recommend people put their content there, mostly because you never know your title, your show notes, your whatever, it could get picked up and sent out and have that SEO gold that you're really looking for and just get it out in front of the right audience. The podcast platforms like Spotify, like Apple Podcasts, they're not going to do that to the degree that something like a YouTube is going to do. You have to do a lot of back end legwork of newsletters and posting on social media and all of these kind of things to get people to go to your content. Uh, Whereas, like I said, YouTube kind of has that built in. It is going to do the heavy lifting for you to push it to your audience. And you know this, Jesse, like, right? Like, I don't know. Do you ever have something on YouTube that just kind of like, for no reason, it feels like just pops off? And you're like, holy
Oh,
crap,
totally.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, I have over 200 episodes on the Wednesday page, and there's random ones that'll be like thousands of views. And it's like, I don't even know why. That wasn't even like a huge name, but cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there I could obviously go into every platform is evolving and changing. Spotify is involving more and more video. I tell people this. I say, if you're going to record audio, you might as well do the video, but you don't
Totally.
necessarily have to edit it. It's nice to just have it. You can always use it for socials. You can always use it later down the line, but it's just nice to have it because you never know. Everywhere seems to be pushing more and more video. Instagram recently came out. They talked about how video is dominant on their platform. Spotify keeps adding video this and video that. We're seeing this uptick of that. Smart televisions, right? YouTube announced recently that television is the number one way that people are consuming their content from YouTube, which is like insane. It used to be exclusively on laptops and computers, and then it went to smartphones, and now we're on televisions. It's like, who would have thought it, right?
Yeah, I had
So
a text message once from Mark Jarrow. He sent me a text message. He's like, "Look, you're on TV," and I'm like, "Wow!" But it was just
yeah,
YouTube. He's like, "We just watch YouTube at home."
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
great.
But it all comes down to really that idea and what you're passionate about. And I think
Yeah,
that is, once you can nail that, your authenticity, we were talking about it on the show before. It's like we are attracted to the things that share our values, right? The things that we want to invest our time and our energy, our money into, right? We have to be attracted to the values that those things give off. And so putting out content, it's a demonstration of who you are, what you value, those types of things. Your audience, it will come. You build it, they will come, right? That's what I
yeah,
always like to say.
totally. Well, Shama, you definitely figured out your calling for your podcast. Is this your first podcast that you started, or was there one before?
No, this was the first. And, it's really interesting because against everyone's advice, my podcast is audio only. And,
Okay.
it's really interesting because the conversation, the narrative arc of our show is like, it starts off with like, Jesse, what was life like as a little girl? And
Mm,
then like, how did you sort of navigate through things? And what I realized, at least for myself, is like to get vulnerable and intimate, I do not want to be checking my lipstick. I don't want to be checking my hair. I don't
uh,
want to be worried about what's in my teeth. And so, and in many cases, some people get emotional about some of the stuff that we're talking about that has to do with money. And so for me, it's like everyone's like, but you're so good on camera. You should do the video. I'm like, actually, like the thing itself, and it is actually it's better in this audio way. And there is a authenticity that comes through because it's not on video. And so it's kind of
yeah,
bizarre to go against like what everyone's telling me to do. And I'm like, but it just
totally.
like land.
Yeah. Well, and let
I
me
feel
encourage
that.
you because audio is still the number one listened to
Is
like
it? I
form
didn't
of
realize
podcast.
that.
Yes. So even on YouTube, if you have your podcast on YouTube, it
Yeah.
like audio is the way that primarily people are enjoying it.
Oh, cool. Well, there
Yeah.
you go.
So be encouraged. And
Thank
that
God.
is to say too that however you have to figure out the platform that works for you. I have one show that I work on. It's an anonymous podcast. They talk a lot about trauma, sexual and domestic abuse, things like that. So it doesn't lend itself to being on video because those people do not want to be on video. And to your point of people get emotional, sometimes we have to cut out 5 minutes of crying, and that is just that is part of the deal. And so it doesn't lend itself to being on video. Other shows like this show, it
Does.
it benefits from being on video, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to find what
Life.
works for you, and no one way is the correct way because you can name anybody down any line that like they have made a bankroll and a half on any of these platforms, right? In any of these mediums. And so it's finding what works
Totally.
for you and what you're passionate about and what you feel like you can actually work into your system. I wanted to start my podcast as an audio only, and I was just going to do video as a background supplemental thing in the background. And And then I just edited the video and I was like, I might as well just publish it. And here we are, a couple months later. And here I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm sucked into the video aspect of it now. But I'm with you. There are days I'm like, my hair looks garbage or whatever. And I'm like,
Totally.
I don't want
Yeah,
to get
like,
on
get
video
ready
today.
for Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're just talking about sales and marketing stuff here, so we're like, yeah, humanizing that topic, I think with video is helpful, and seeing people's faces, especially with AI and marketing, everything is so like everyone is so non-human anymore. It's so robotic. So being live and real time with your audience, is what I'm trying to go for here, is like to humanize marketing a little more. Cause like deep fakes, even like for those video clips you see on LinkedIn, you can make deep fakes and just have, but like a conversation like this can't be replicated by AI. So this is still like totally human. So like I don't see conversations like this going anywhere, like on LinkedIn, or even like we're seeing TikTok even more. Like live streaming is where commerce is happening. Like people are just going live, and that's like the new QVC. It's like, here's actually, speaking of, this dress is from TikTok. I get commission on it. So if you go to TikTok and you buy it, then like, but that's kind of what live streaming is becoming. So with LinkedIn Live, it's sort of like the B2B version of what you see on TikTok with all the like B2C like products being sold live. But anyway, I digress. We have
People crave authenticity. That is what will sell any day of the week. I've worked on shows where we've made the whole thing with AI. It's an AI generated voice. It's everything. And it just doesn't convert. Like it just doesn't do what you would think it would do, because podcasting is such an intimate thing that it needs the real person behind it to actually like be successful.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. It's all about the human story. People connect with people, not brands. But we'll be right back for more conversation. We've got 15 more minutes of this right after this message.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM and Go High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
So if you're listening on podcast, there's a menu on the screen right now showing that Cherry Assistant also helps with lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management assistance, and so much more. So go to cherryassistant.com. Check them out. I think I get a $250 cut if you sign up with them. Don't quote me. It might be a percentage. I need to triple check on that. But I've had a really great partnership with Cherry Assistant. And it started with DJ Kim. So he's the founder and CEO. Actually, I don't know if he's technically CEO. He's got a partner. So we'll say he's a founder. But before this, they had Data Ghost. So Data Ghost originally sponsored Wednesday. Data Ghost was acquired 6 months later, and they said in the acquisition that Wednesday, this show, got them their first 100 users. And I would argue is because they were so giving. They allowed us to give away all these credits, so it was easy to get them users. But they had a great experience. We had a great experience. And so now with their second business, Cherry Assistant, we're so excited to be working with them again. So it's really just been a really great experience. But also with, let me tell everyone really quick about High Level. So I was telling you all a little bit about it earlier, but if you go to reveting.com/high level, you get 30 days free to just try it out yourself. And what I love about it most is that it helps me with my social media. It helps me with my landing pages and all my automations. I basically became an expert in High Level and building it for myself. So then once I did that with my own show, and then I helped other people start to go live, then I just duplicated it. So it's like, you're going to need a podcast booking calendar. And ideally it looks branded and nice because you're giving it to your guests. Then you're going to need some automations and some emails to follow up. So all of that we have built out that we can just put in a snapshot for our clients. But on top of that, like we're migrating B2B companies from larger SaaS players like HubSpot and Salesforce onto app.reveting.com and saving them thousands of dollars a month. But I digress. Check out highlevel.com. You're going to love it. I know I do. But we've got 2 more great topics. Let's blend them together. So we've got turning operational excellence into a growth engine. Ooh, operational excellence, and AI and content, balancing tech and human. So
I mean, I love the AI. I love the AI topic. I'm like, I mean, we can talk about all of it, but I'm like, that's so fun.
let's talk about all of it. It's all on the table. So Syama, do you want to kick us off a little bit with operational excellence?
Oh yeah, I'll keep it really lean here because when it comes to profitability and growth, I'll give a little bit of context. So I've historically been in positions where I was charged with, stepchild businesses or startups, right? Or things that were not fully formed. And so for me, a big part of my success, and I'll say, turning a $50 million business into a $100 million business in 2 years, or taking, or I started a company with a co-founder, grew it to 3 million in 6 months. Like, these things happen because of being able to really have set in stone a set of processes. And being able to really be clear on the vision, right? And so I really believe when it comes to business, there are really only 5 key areas of doing business, and I think everyone can do them. And that is, you have your product plan, whatever you're selling, you have your product, so like gross margins, you have your sales, your marketing, your finance, and your operations. And those are really the 5 key areas. And people will sometimes try to sell you into the idea that it's so much more complicated than that. But one of the most important things when it comes to sort of looking at this operational excellence, right, is, as a founder, I would say, figuring out what are sort of the key things that you are uniquely situated to do. And you mentioned this earlier, Jesse, around delegation and figuring out how to sort of get things done that you are not necessarily most equipped to do. And one of the things that I found that happens more often than not is people will say, oh, I need to go and learn digital marketing. I need to go and learn product development. I need to go and learn all of these things and basically get a master's level, experience in all these things. But great CEOs and leaders know enough about all these things. They've certainly come up through a lineage of being a master at maybe 1 or 2 of those things, that they really understand sort of how to hire and manage people and how to set expectations and a trajectory. And that, I think, is a core sort of skill set, knowing enough, not knowing deep into everything, so you can keep your eye on the prize, which is typically long-term growth, profitability, and having success. So I don't know if there's one sort of key thing here, but I think as far as operational excellence, I think a big part of knowing what on earth is it that you're excellent in, and how do you sort of build teams and organizations, not based on someone else's playbook, but based on a playbook that's unique to your own value propositions that you bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you blend AI into that? But yeah, I don't know. I guess how I blended AI into it would be in like a hiring application or a hiring description, looking for more salespeople. I can use AI for that sales description. And then I'm just thinking personally right now, because we've got a sales team now and we're building it, we're trying to train them. So like the training materials, we've used AI, trying to equip them with what I know. So I've been using AI. So my AI will read from all my Google Docs and all these other things. So to create SOPs and information that they can use as like sales scripts. And because, for the longest time, it was only me selling. And still to this day, I'm the best seller of my own business. But I'm trying really hard to get other people to be able to sell so I can delegate and grow. So I don't know, just throwing out ideas, hopefully to inspire someone else to also use AI to help you delegate with all of this. But Jacob, what's your thoughts on all of this? And how would you tie it all back into whatever the next part was, which was AI and content, balancing tech and human?
I think I view it, there's an ethical dilemma when it comes to AI and the way of like, is it stealing? What is it? And I think one of the things you first kind of have to look at is like, what kind of an AI are you using? What is it pulling from? All those types of things. I'm not going to get in deep in the weeds in that. You can do your own research on those types of things. But let me walk you through some of the ways that I use AI in my content on the weekly and in my clients' content. So I have a couple AIs that are trained on specifically their content and only their content. So it's their way of writing, their way of speaking, all those types of things. And so making show notes, making questions for your podcast interviews, those kinds of things. That's what I use AI for a lot of the time. So let me tell you exactly how I use it for my show. So I do my best thinking when I am out on my daily walk. And what I do is I turn on a little recorder and I record myself all of my thoughts, whatever it is. And some of that it has to do with my show. I'll ask questions of it, that kind of a thing. And what I do is I transcribe that entire thing using AI. And then that transcription gets sent into whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of these other ones. You pick your poison, so to speak. But what I have it do then is pull out all of the questions that I asked, and we use it to reformat and things like that. Perplexity.ai is a great tool that it ties in a search engine capability. So think of it like Google mixed with AI. It's a great little tool there. If you haven't played with it, go play with it. But I pull out all of my questions and kind of use it to distill all of my thoughts that are kind of all over the place of topics I want to go, places I want to go on the show, who I want to interview, all these different things. I use it to distill that down to an actual like workable document. And then I can build from there. The same way that I use my full conversation and interview that I do with a guest, I take that, I punch it into my AI. It knows how I write. It knows how I like my things formatted. And it can take that conversation and it can distill it down into a couple paragraphs for my show notes. Usually it can pull the links for me if there are links, all those kinds of things. And yeah, so that's really how I'm using AI in like my business and in the content creation. I don't really use it to do all of the research for me or to create everything for me because quite honestly, I personally feel like that's stealing. And then it's not genuine. And we were talking about that genuine connection. So I just use it to enhance what I'm already doing and what I would do anyways. It just simplifies my process a little bit, takes a couple of those steps out of there. But it's all trained on me and what I do. So
Yeah, I hear you there for sure. What's your take on AI, Shama? How are you using it?
Yeah, I think I love what you said about sort of it being a partner. I
Mm,
think that the one thing we're all missing out on is critical thinking. And I don't think we were real critical thinkers before AI, but I definitely think that people are becoming less and less and less critical thinkers. And so I
yeah,
think a big part of it is like, how do we sort of use these things not to farm out thoughts, opinions, and ideas, but how do we sort of use it to help fine tune areas and help with things, knowing that like a young intern, not all the research will be correct, right? And
right.
so this concept of critical thinking, I just think is so important. And I think that I'll tell you this, someone the other day sent me a draft of a document that they had created and asked me to edit it. And it was someone who I didn't really know. And I was like, well, I'll take a look at this. And I was going to do them a favor. And it was like Chat GPT all over it. And I was so upset because I was like, wow, you basically want me to do your work for you, which is give you thoughts and feedback on something that you didn't even create yourself. And so I think that what we're going to see are standardizations if people are not using AI in the ways that are actually really unique to them and to what they need and what they're communicating. There's a homogeneity that we're all seeing across all these platforms where it's very clear that these are not people's thoughts and opinions. And in this world of like investing, it's like, it is not okay when you read someone's pitch deck and then you talk to them and these two things do not match up, right?
mm,
So like you will be found out, right? So to your
Yeah.
point about authenticity, like you will be found out if you are not actually owning your ideas and being able to communicate that which AI is helping you to draft.
Right.
yeah,
It always comes down to you have to do a double check.
yeah.
My mom was an English teacher. She always would talk about I would send her my paper on like Robinson Crusoe or some book that we had just read, right? And she would be like, "Did you even spell check this?" Right? And she's like, "You have to double check everything." And that's kind of how I use AI, right? It's like it can do some of the heavy lifting for me. It's I can put in the good input. I can have it do some of the heavy lifting, especially formatting, the formatting issues. Like it can handle that kind of a thing, spit it back out, and then I can do my final take on it and humanize it again. And once it's humanized again, it's my own thoughts. I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm putting out into the world. And like that is so important. And we're missing that step because everyone is seeing, well, you can pump out 150 pieces of content with the click of a button. No, we're not doing that. Let's do quality over quantity.
Yes. I do love AI, but I am aware that there's AI detection out there. So like, first of all, the algorithms know when you're using AI, and other people can figure out when you're using AI. There's free detection tools out there, like if they really want to know. But then also, just like, you don't want to be that person who gave Syama that AI document. You know what I mean? And like, you see the reaction there, and like, of course, that's how I'm gonna react when someone sends me something like that, because at least I know what it is. Oh, you just took that spreadsheet I sent you and you plugged it into AI and it gave you a summary on it. Okay, thank you. I could have done that myself, but appreciate that. Or like, this morning someone was asking, like, do you want me to make you a checklist for this? And I'm like, no, here's the checklist. It's from AI. But what I need is for you to go through the checklist. But yeah, so just be smart about how you're using AI, people. Guru of the week. We got to do the guru of the week. Ooh, ooh. So tell us, who should we be going and following on LinkedIn and in general, who inspires you? I'm going to pull myself.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, totally. So Cindy Gallup is my guru of the week. She is a total badass. She has a company called Make Love Not Porn that is so incredibly valuable to society in terms of how we think about rethinking sexuality, sexual education, all of those things. She's brilliant. She comes from an advertising background. Her commentary and keynotes are like on fire, and she is super fun to read, watch, listen to, but is also pioneering something that I think is so valuable and often underlooked.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I've heard of her before, and yes, I love the things that she's doing. Mine is Ariel Nissenblatt. I think I said that right. And Ariel is amazing in the podcasting space. She worked with Descript and Squadcast, which are two big, like, they do behind the scenes podcasting stuff. You're recording, you're editing, those types of things. But she has a great newsletter. She walks through a bunch of different, like, she breaks down the podcasts that you should be listening to on the weekly, but she has great insights about the podcasting industry. She is one of, I would argue, one of the forefront women in the podcasting industry who is really talking about what we can build and what women can build in the podcasting space. She's very big at uplifting female voices inside of that space as well. And so go check her out on LinkedIn. Get on her newsletter because it's absolutely fantastic. It'll tell you what you need to listen to that week. And that's all I'm gonna plug for her.
I can't wait to follow her. How cool.
She's awesome.
Yeah, totally. She sounds great. Also, could you both tell everyone exactly what you do, who you serve, and if they could be served by you, how could they reach out to you? Start with you, Syama.
Sure. So I work with women. I would say they're planning mid to long term in terms of life and money. I create content. So I'm a storyteller and a community builder, and I connect people to resources. And so if anyone wants to be connected to resources, build community around money, think long-term and strategically, please come find me. My website is syamabunten.com. So Syama with a Y, so not SHAMA. And follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the fun places, but come find me because we are not alone and we can get rich together.
And follow her on Spotify. That's where I followed you, where I really got to hear more. That was where I found your podcast. And it's a great podcast. So definitely check it out. Jacob, I need to check out your homeschooling podcast. I haven't seen that one, but I wasn't homeschooled, so it might be a little out of my league.
Well, I mean, we talk about like what it was and what it looked like. So if you're interested in understanding the mechanics of what went on in the background and what it looked like, it is great for that. But yeah, Ex Homeschoolers Club, and it's EX-Homeschoolers Club. But if you go check out me, the Jacob Gooden, so just my name, Jacob, spelled with a C, and Gooden is Gooden. So the Jacob Gooden on any social platforms. That's my email as well. So thejacobgooden@gmail.com. Reach out to me with questions. Hit me up on any of those platforms: LinkedIn, Threads, Instagram, anywhere. That's where you'll find me. But yeah, and my podcast is linked in all that stuff as well. So you can find it. And if you can't, just shoot me a message. I'll send it to you. I love sharing it with people.
I don't know if you're taking new clients. I know at one point you weren't, but like,
Oh yes, let me say that too. I totally am. If you want to work with me, I help people create really dope content. And whether it's podcasting or YouTube videos or TikToks or whatever, like that's what I do. There's nothing out of
it's
the
really good stuff.
wheelhouse. Yeah,
Thank you
there's
for
nothing
sharing.
out of the wheelhouse. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll either refer you to somebody else or I'll learn it right alongside with you. So if you just want encouragement in creating content, I'm your guy.
Well, thank you both so much. I know we're 2 minutes over, so I want to be mindful of your time. And next week we have an awesome episode planned, so come back for more. Oh, sorry, I covered you up there, Jake. I'm going to cover myself up instead. But we'll be closing us out with a video now. But thank you so much again for coming. And everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Outro video.